All right, everyone, welcome back to the Behavior Blueprint podcast. I am Mandy Grass, behavior analyst and parent coach. This week, we are talking all things back to school. Now, back to school, especially across the United States, happens at all different times. We were just saying a friend of mine in South Carolina's daughter went back this week. A client I work with in Texas goes back next week. So I guess this is really targeted for the East Coast because I cannot bring myself to do a back to school episode in July. That sounds insane. So we go back in 2.5 weeks. So we are getting ready in our home. We have a kindergartner. Marley is starting kindergarten, and our oldest is going to be a junior in high school. So we are spread across many schools and many grades. So the back to school routine obviously looks really different for a kindergartner than it does for someone at 16, but the principles are the same. Don't wait until the first day of school to suddenly expect good behavior. Start practicing the routines more than you actually think you do. At the same time, I don't want to turn August into September. Something I am incredibly guilty of, as I talk in like numerous episodes, is piling on. And so I tend to want to suck every last ounce of summer out of summer. So you are going to hear the hypocrisy in what my plan is. But don't worry, I will tell you, where some of the pitfalls are and some of the things that I am going to focus on. One of the things that I have really enjoyed about doing this podcast, so we launched in February, is the way that it holds me accountable. So, for example, in June, I did a whole bunch of like summer stuff and what does that look like? And because I am, talking to all of you guys, I have to hold myself accountable for implementing the things that I said I was going to do. So, I am excited to start here. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Mandy Grass, the family behaviorist, and these are 3 of my favorite little humans.
Hi, I'm on this podcast. Let's do this.
Let's do this. This is the Behavior Blueprint where we can figure out why kids do what they do.
Is that why parents yell sometimes?
Sometimes, because parenthood is messy, behavior is complex, but with the right blueprint, we can figure it out together.
Yeah!
Okay, part 1. We are going to start with sleep. But a lot of times we focus on like the wake up time, but I am going to start on the bedtime. So again, the hypocrisy. We have all of the kids' cousins, I think 15 kids sleeping over here on Sunday. So we will definitely be starting this Monday. One thing I want to be mindful of is incrementally backing up to where the kids typically go to bed. So the girls, Lola and Parker, are usually in their rooms between 8 and 8:30. And they sometimes read a little bit or write in their journals and then fall asleep. Last night, Parker put herself to bed at 9:30. We had people over and Lola didn't go to bed till 10. So I want to start incrementally backing that up. So I think starting Monday night, they have to be in their rooms by 9. And I want to, every couple of days, back it up by 10 or 15 minutes until we're getting into the routine of being in their beds when they're supposed to be, which again is between 8 and 8:30. It doesn't have to be super consistent, but you do want to start to get into that routine. One of the people I am the most worried about with the waking up and going to sleep is myself. This has been an amazing summer, but as I said, I have piled on. We have had so many guests. We have done so many fun things, and I am exhausted. I slept until 8:30 the other day, which is like unheard of for me. And we have to be up early. Jerry got a new job, which is very exciting. But our 3 kids catch the bus at 6:45. So it really have to be up and like in the shower by 5:30. So that is super important. Okay, so back to the bedtime. So I'm going to incrementally back it up. And I'm also going to start incrementally backing up their wake up time. So I'm not going to be like, all right, guys, everybody up at 7:15 tomorrow. I'm going to start with a steady like 8 a.m. wake up time. And again, just like I'm backing up the bedtime every few days, every few minutes, I'm going to do the same thing with the mornings. Here's the other thing that's really important. For the next week, I'm just going to work on the wake up times. I don't know about you guys, but our mornings in the summer are far more lax. You come down in jammies, you're watching a show. All of that is wonderful. Starting the following week, I'm going to have them get up and get dressed before they come down while incrementally backing up the time. Our school starts on a Thursday, and so starting that Monday, I will be having the kids get up, get dressed, eat a school breakfast, and get out the door. I was writing this podcast episode before breakfast the other day, and one of the things I also said I wanted to focus on was school breakfast. So in the summer, we are like sometimes making pancakes, like Jerry makes these Nutella crescent rolls. We are like sometimes making an egg breakfast, which is lovely, but not realistic for our school routine. And again, I wrote this episode and I come inside and Lola's like, hi, could you please make me some runny eggs? Which of course I did and I love doing. But starting next week, I want to get in the habit of school breakfast, tends to be something a little bit quicker. Or do we like prep the pancakes on Sunday? So we just warm them up, all of that sort of stuff. But on the Sunday through Wednesday starting, we are going to do regular school bedtimes. We're going to do regular school wake ups, up, get dressed, all of that good stuff. And we are going to get out the door. So we are going to go somewhere. Like maybe it's even just to get a coffee, or maybe it's like to go to my parents' house or something, just to get in the habit of like getting up and getting out. I think I shared with you guys up until last year when we moved, we left the house every morning. So because of my work hours, the girls went to like a before care where they caught the bus. So we really needed to work on that. We need to work on that a little bit less now. So there are things that I could do, like you have to be up and dressed and you have to be riding your bike by, 7:45 or whatever. Again, just so we're getting in the habit of like what the routine might look like. Ultimately, the thing I want you to keep in mind is shaping behavior. We are shaping behavior, meaning incremental approximations to terminal behavior. So we are backing it up slowly and we are letting everybody adjust to the new routine. The gradual or approximate will be much better for you. However, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I have a week, I still want you to do it gradually, meaning you say to your kid, okay, it's going to be 8:30 Wednesday and Thursday. It's going to be 8:15 Friday and Saturday. So again, maybe you're not giving it quite as long to shape, but you're still being consistent in those expectations. Okay, so I already touched on the breakfast transition, but that's a good one. Another thing that I used to do last year, and this is where we're going to go with the rest of this podcast episode, is some of those organizational techniques. But prior to last year, I would make the kids I would make the kids lunch the night before. Now I know some of you are like listening to that and probably being like, that's disgusting. And you know what? That's fair. But my kids are young and they haven't complained about it yet. I really want to be mindful of the structure that I need to get out the door on time. And for me, especially when I was a single mom or a single married mom, removing the barrier of having to make lunches was a big one. Now, last year, I had a full partner in every morning routine. So it was easy to get the breakfast and make the lunches. But as I mentioned with Jerry's new job, I think that's going to be a little bit trickier. So I really want to be mindful about any variable I can remove ahead of time. That also doesn't mean that it has to be me. Last year, Lola got really into making her own lunch. Lately, she's really into Caesar salad and was like, can I have that for lunch? So some of those things we might start prepping. Maybe that means she makes the whole salad the night before and we just put the dressing on in the morning. Things like getting our water bottles filled, having a consistent routine of where things go. All of that I really want to set up to get us to a better place. So I will be honest, as I am recording this podcast, I am exhausted because this morning when all the kids were eating breakfast, we're just starting to talk about back to school. And I was like, listen, guys, I am not buying one single article of clothing, not one single shoe until we've gone through your closets. I do the laundry and I know that half your drawers can't close. And I really, really want to go through your closets and make sure that we have an accurate inventory of the things that you have, all of that good stuff. That turned into like, hey, let's do that right now, which I wasn't totally planning on, but no time like the present. So we just went through 7 kids' dressers, closets, and shoes. I am exhausted. I think we did it pretty intelligently, though. We started with the oldest, and what happened was, because when you're going through the oldest clothes, you're like, all right, bring the next in line, because if the oldest doesn't like these, then do they fit you? So what ended up happening was all 7 kids in each kid's bedroom as we went through the drawers, which got a little bit chaotic at times, but was also kind of fun. Some of the kids were like, I remember when I used to wear that. And we got to joke about how some of them have no underwear in their drawers and how on earth did that happen? One thing I remember from being a kid is I would like go back to school shopping with my mom. And I remember my mom being like, this is so cute. And I didn't think so. But a people pleaser starts really young. And I'd be like, oh, okay, sure. So as we were going through with my kids, I was like, I promise you, I don't care. If I bought it for you and you never wore it and has tags on it, if you just don't like it, I said, I don't want anything in your drawers that doesn't fit or you don't like, because it's just getting shoved to the back of the drawer. It's clogging up our drawers. It's just not working. So my 14-year-old reminded me several times throughout this process. He's like, we don't judge. Because I think sometimes I would pull it out and be like, you don't like this? And he'd be like, we don't judge. I'm like, you're right. I want to get rid of everything. And listen, is this ideal that we're doing this before school? Absolutely. If you're listening to this and you're like, Mandy, you are 9 minutes into this podcast and already have told me so many things I have to do and you're feeling overwhelmed by it, not all of this has to happen now. For me, the premise of the routine is it's something called chaining, where one step leads into the next, leads into the next. I want to remove as many variables as humanly possible. We went through my high schooler's school bag last week. We were cleaning their room. We were going through his bag and he was like, we can throw all of that out. And I was like, why have we had a full bag sitting here for 2 months full of school things that we don't need? So getting all of that in place is really important. Again, one step leads into the next, leads into the next. The idea of putting the work in now is one, hopefully you have the time. Obviously understand if you don't. But two, if you start with a really strong routine in November when the wheels fall off and it gets really messy, you have something to fall back on. So regressions are going to happen. I can tell you we usually have one in November and we usually have one in March, where, the routine gets stale or whatever. If you have those fundamental steps in place, when there's a regression, you can pull back, you can decrease your expectations, and you can build back up. So that is really important. The next part of this that we are working on is putting things where they're accessible, putting things where the kids can be more independent. We just did shoes. And I said to them, I was like, tell me what fits, what doesn't fit, and what you don't like. They got a pair of hand-me-downs. Sometimes when they get hand-me-downs, they're like, oh my God, I love these so much. And I was like, do you really love these shoes? Because if not, let's get rid of them. Because you don't have to wear them if you don't love them, but also you're not wearing them and they're just clogging up the space. So silly things, but trying to get back into that routine. Okay. Well, first of all, our kids can shower whenever they want, I guess, but most of our kids shower at night. Lola and Parker will occasionally want to shower in the morning. Lola has curly hair, and I have not mastered her curly hair. However, I will say if we wet it or she showers in the morning, the curls look way better. So please send me all of your advice, but not a 15-step routine. We can't do it. I need a 2-step routine. That kit-ish, if that's even how you say it, the air dry cream has been a game changer. Ooh, I digress. However, Parker has been the queen of saying to me lately, hey, can I shower in the morning? And I say, sure. And do you know what happens in the morning? I forget that I said that. And so now she got the stinky kid. No, I'm just kidding about that part. But I realize that I'm intermittently reinforcing that because I forget. So I want to go back into nope, we're going to shower at night. Or if they do shower in the morning, holding them accountable. The other thing is the expression, I give them enough rope to hang themselves. They sometimes do like to shower in the mornings. I'm okay with that. I shower in the mornings. I get it. But that is contingent on you setting up your routine that you wake up early enough to be able to shower. Now, it's not a one and done. That's not fair. But if we have 3 consecutive days or we have 3 days within a week that you are not showered and at breakfast on time, then we got to go back to nighttime shower. Just like the Dr. Pepper issue from a few weeks ago, you have to give them an opportunity to revisit it. So you want to set up those systems. Okay, you're showering. That means you have to get up at 6:15. You have to be out of the shower by 6:40, whatever that sort of looks like. But make sure you revisit it. If you operate in these extremes of nope, it didn't work one time, we're never going to be able to build the skill. Now, part of why I have been reinforcing intermittently Parker showering in the mornings is my girls sometimes argue about who showers first. This drives me nuts. We have 4 showers in this home. You could all shower at the same time. Obviously, they have preferences, whatever. So I was talking about this in front of Jerry's mom and sister, and Jerry's mom was like, hey, I know what you should do. Why don't you make a chart? And so I just want you guys to understand that I know what it's like to be listening to my podcast. Because as she's telling me this, I was like, I'm not making one more chart. Again, 15 minutes into this episode, you guys are probably like, you haven't even gotten to the charts, but I know it's coming. And it is. So there's an element of I just want them to get it together. Here's the thing. It's not aversive enough to me right now. It's not every day. It's intermittent. We have multiple showers. Sometimes I'm oh, and mine. I completely understand that I am reinforcing this to the nth degree. But it is something I want to be mindful of. If I start to get frustrated about it, and that becomes a repeated pattern, remember, we're always looking for patterns, then I am going to have to put something in place because of the amount of emotional energy it's taking for me to navigate that all the time. However, I can appreciate that you guys listen to me and you're like, stop telling me to make one more chart. They use it for a week and then they never use it again, that kind of thing. So I also do want to say some of these strategies, all of these strategies, this entire episode is a lot of work initially. Okay. This summer was my first summer with all 7 kids in one house, all 9 of us. I did a lot of work in June to put systems in place, around food, chores, family expectations. And I will say, I feel like we are in a much better place. There's far less negotiating. Like today, the kids were like, "Can I go swimming?" And I was like, "What chores have you done?" And we're able to default to that. It's not a power struggle. It's not a constant negotiation. Things feel much better. So I know right now, as I'm like exhausted and just spent 3 hours going through drawers, I know that that will pay off ultimately because we're setting those systems up. However, it's work. It's a lot of work, and I get it. Okay. The next thing that I want to do with the kids is revamp their charts. So this is mostly the younger kids. The older kids are pretty good in their routines. Again, we're looking for patterns. If we start to notice a pattern that is making things more difficult, then we're going to have to adjust. I think you guys remember the story last year of my 16-year-old Jerry accidentally forgot to wake him up one morning. And he came out and he was like, "What's up with that? You're just like not waking me up anymore?" And it like we all kind of joked about it, but it was a good time for us to be like, "Hey, like, how do you want to be woken up? Is it 15 minutes ahead? Is it the alarm? Like, what does that look like?" And that is called contingency shaped. So there's 2 different types of behavior rule governed. We say get up at 6:15, and the kids get up at 6:15 every day. My 13-year-old, I swear to God, he like his alarm goes off, he jumps out of bed, he comes downstairs, he's like dressed and ready to go. It's amazing. My 16-year-old, though, we didn't wake them up, and they were like, "Hi, I need that." And so then we back it up to like, what does that look like? How many do you want? 6:15 and then 6:30, all of those sort of things. So just keep that in mind. So mostly I'm talking about my girls, to be completely honest, partly because they're highly distracted, also because, and perhaps this is unfair generalization, but they're girls and they like want to put on their skincare and, their perfume and whatever else they got their hands on that day. We have a skylight calendar downstairs. That's been working really well. We are going to continue to use that. I just saw an advertisement for like these skylight minis that go in the kids' rooms. And they like, basically, I think they have less features and you can sort of swipe through a schedule. I'm not going to lie. It really piqued my interest. I've been thinking about it for 3 days. I want to like learn a little bit more about those. However, in the meantime, I also want to go a little bit low tech. Lola is very into Canva. She makes birthday cards on there. She made herself, I actually have this in the club if anybody's interested. They got a tin can phone and I made them like a call log of the phone numbers they can call, all this stuff. She's very, very into Canva. So we are going to revamp our list, fresh start, in Canva, but I'm going to do it with the girls. So I'm going to sit down with them and be like, okay, we're going to sit in their room and kind of go through their morning routine. We'll probably do this some point this week. Okay, what do we do first? Do we get dressed first? Do we brush our teeth first? Do we wash our face first? What is our list? I want them to have the autonomy and the choice to figure that out. I'm going to write it out for them and either take pictures or Lola can use icons. And then I'm going to ask Lola to make a list that she really likes in Canva. That buy-in is super important. And I think Lola will feel really excited about it. We're going to make 2 charts. We are going to make a morning routine chart and a clean room chart because the girls and I have very different definitions of what a clean room looks like. But I want them to define it. So to be honest, up until this point, it's been me sort of telling them, like, this is what we should do. Now they are 10, almost 8. Marley's starting kindergarten. I want them to tell me what they think it should look like, what they think is helpful to them in the mornings. I think I've told you guys this before, but when I first implemented my kids' morning routines, I was of the mindset that there should be no downtime because downtime was a killer. And just this year, with the big kids here, they leave the house at 6:45. So our house is buzzing a lot earlier. Lola started getting up a lot earlier when the other kids were here. And it made our mornings so much smoother. I think it gave her a little bit of side quest time. It gave her a little time to have a slower breakfast, whatever that might look like, which is not something I would have ever done before. So, go to school on May. I thought it needed to be a super tight routine, and the looser the routine was actually a little bit better if I gave them a little bit more time. So those are some things to keep in mind as well. This is something that I've decided I also want to work on. Laundry in our home in general, I would say like 80% of the time is really great because each kid has their own laundry bin and it's like labeled with their name on it. I did mention this on a different podcast episode. I hate them. They're like canvas bags, so they like fold inward. They don't really, the laundry is never in the bin, right? Like it's like around it. So if anybody's any suggestions, please, please, please tell me what you use. But a client of mine has each kid has a day of the week for laundry. And I actually don't even know if she makes them put it, not makes them, if she has them put it in the washing machine or not, or just bring it down. I'm toying with the idea of that, where like each kid is responsible on a designated day. And what's been really cool about my client is she's been able to fold other things into that. So like, I don't know, on laundry day, it's also your day for blank. And so it's helping with some of that continuity. So I'm considering that, pretty heavily considering that, because I think that that might be really nice for us. So we'll come back to that. The next thing is I'm considering like clean room checks, essentially. So remember, my girls are here all the time, and maybe that's like a Tuesday and a Sunday. My only hesitation here is that I know if I go in on a Friday and there's a wet towel on the floor, it's going to send me. It's going to make me super, super frustrated. If I go in to say goodnight to them or go in to wake them up. So I'm not sure that that's going to work for me. So I think I would prefer a less stringent expectation. So sort of like a tidy room, meaning, laundry off the floor, towels hung up, bed pulled together, versus a stricter like, hey, your room needs to be totally clean on Tuesdays and Sundays. If you have an opinion about this, let me know, because I'm getting in there. I want to start to figure this out. Okay, we are 20 minutes into this podcast. And again, I've said this a couple times already. You probably think this is insane. This is a lot of stuff. Where I've talked about changing everyone's sleep, practicing the school routine, talking about breakfast, cleaning the drawers, organizing shoes, resetting the nighttime shower routine, making routine charts, creating a definition of clean rooms, possibly assigning clean room days, and possibly assigning laundry days. Whew, that sounds like a lot. Even just saying it sounds like a lot. We don't have to do all of that at once. And in behavior analysis, there's something called social significance. So when I look at that chart, what things, if changed, would make the biggest difference to me? One was the drawers. Check, we've done that. And two probably is the laundry, because that is something that can start to feel super overwhelming to me. So I might pick one or two of those things. You don't need to do this all. If you're listening to this and it's already September, you can start at any time. Get your kids on board, though, instead of being like, we're doing this. Also be realistic with yourself. Sometimes, and I'm talking to you ADHD parents out there, meaning you have ADHD, sometimes people be like, I'm going to do it all. And you burn out on day 3 and do none. Start with something that feels really attainable. Start with something that feels good and will make a small difference in your home, because you can build from there. If you're like, oh my God, forget it, then it's not impossible, but you're constantly starting over. And that can feel like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Okay, what I would like to say, I already mentioned this earlier, establishing these routines is going to help you throughout the school year. It's going to be okay, let's get back to basics. Okay, let's go back to September and remember what it feels like. Regressions are going to happen. I promise you. I will tell you throughout this whole school year when it happens to me, but just keep some of that in mind. Okay, does this look different for my 5-year-old versus my 16-year-old? Absolutely. So some of you are probably listening. Marley is very independent in getting dressed. I will say she sometimes looks like Punky Brewster, but in this house, we are targeting independence at this point. So for our little kids, we really need to teach. So if you're listening to this and you're like, Marley gets dressed all by herself, like Susie could never. Okay, then what does that look like for you? Does that look like they pick their clothes out and you help them get dressed? Does that look like you pick the clothes out, you help them get their pants on, you go brush your teeth and you come back when they're independent? What does that look like? And if you are listening to this in August and your school doesn't start until September, what are those things we can put in place to build on? Remember to be really realistic with your expectations. If you set them too high, you're setting yourself up for failure. So remember, consider visuals. The reason visuals are so important, I can't believe I got this far without saying that. When visuals are prompts, okay, if you are constantly saying to your child, go brush your teeth, go brush your hair, go get your shoes, Mind you, I've said all of that many days this week alone. But your kids can become reliant on that. What you want to think about when you're thinking about routines is how can I get rid of myself? Now, if I have a visual for Marley and I'm pairing, and I'm pointing to the picture of the shoes and I'm saying, get your shoes, then I can fade to just pointing to the picture. Then I can fade to Marley going to the picture by herself. So your goal, and this might be several weeks, this might be months, but your goal should always be, how can I remove myself from this? So that usually means pairing yourself with something like a visual where you can step back and that cue still exists. So really just keep that in mind. It's not immediate independence, it's just building. Okay, so that's my littlest going to kindergarten. For the elementary age kids, we want to start thinking about what are the responsibilities. We want them to participate in creating the checklist. We want them to rely on the checklist. So for Marley, I might want to pair my prompting with the checklist. For my middle kids, my 8, 9, and 10-year-old, almost 8, 9, and 10-year-old, I want them to prioritize what the things are they need to do with it. I want them to take a little bit more ownership of it. Things like, when is trumpet day? When is soccer? Are we emptying our soccer bag completely? All of those things. Age doesn't automatically equal executive functioning, but when you're thinking, right, I will show you the gamut because I have all these different ages in my house. What are the steps we are taking towards more independence? And that might mean 1 or 2 steps each year to where the 16-year-old, who can now drive, mind you, can get themselves up and out completely. Oh my gosh, this is the first moment that has dawned on me that my oldest will be driving to school and possibly driving his brother. Oh my gosh. Okay, so how's that going to affect the morning machine? I don't even know. I didn't even think about what time they have to leave. Do they get more time? I don't even know what time school actually starts. I just know what time the bus comes. Okay, I digress. Okay, middle school. I have one middle schooler. We really want to shift the responsibility, move from did you brush your teeth? Did you charge your Chromebook? Where are your cleats towards what do you need to do before you leave? So being mindful, again, we want to take those steps towards complete independence. High school is where we get to ownership. So I'm going to have a junior and a freshman in high school. And again, this isn't going to need to be perfect. I probably went to the middle school and high school once a week last year for something that was forgotten. I forgot my shoes, I forgot my jacket, I forgot my uniform. And I'm not expecting them to never do that. But poor Jerry, what happens is when that happens 2 or 3 times, I'm like, okay, this system isn't working. You're like, okay, what is the system we're going to put in place? And that really is what that looks like for me. Patterns. If a pattern is being established or there's something that is existing that you don't feel great about, that's when we're like, okay, let's put something different in place. One of the things was like the soccer uniforms. This summer, we went to soccer camp and Lola forgot her socks. Okay, frustrating in the moment for sure. What is the system we're going to put in place moving forward? In high school, like we just talked about being woken up, I'm still going to do that because honestly, how much longer do I have that they're going to want me to wake them up? But we might want to talk about like using their phone alarm. I have been working with our freshmen about like, we have a shared note. He does a lot of work for the neighborhood. So I'm like, let's put the neighbors' names in a shared note and like what work you did for them and what your rate was so that you can keep that in mind when they're asking you to do other things, all of that sort of stuff. Do we need to pack the bag the night before? Do we need to look at the school lunch menu on Sunday night to determine what lunches we're buying throughout the week and what we might want for lunches if we're packing lunch, all of those sort of things. Charging station. I have a charging station. You know that the Chromebook charging one is a big one. One other thing that I want to be better about this year, and monthly might be too long, I'm not sure, but is binder checks. And what'll happen is that my kids do come to me, especially the one that's going to be a freshman, but he'll come to me maybe a week or 2 past when maybe he should have and be like, this binder is insane. So we're going through it. So what systems can we set up proactively, but also being realistic? What are the checks and balances we can put in place? And instead of constantly reminding, I might start to shift to what's your plan today, right? So do we see how those shifts are for the kids? It's little by little. So again, go to school on me with these huge age gaps is what does it look like as more independence is gained? How can I fade myself back while still being mom? And how can I get my kids to where they need to be? Next week, I was going to try and do it this week, but this episode is going too long. Next week, I'm going to really dive into independence within those routines for the little kids, the toddlers, and the elementary aged kids. What does that look like? What is the function of their behavior, and how can we put some systems in place? Next week, I'm also going to talk about juggling multiple kids. Obviously, I talked about that a bit here today as I'm juggling 7, but how can I help my 4-year-old get dressed when my 7-year-old still isn't out of bed, all of those sort of things. Ultimately, you do not need to implement everything we talked about today. I want you to look back at your school year, ask yourself, like, what was the friction last year? Pick 1 or 2 things to start with if you need to, or you can be nuts like me. You can follow me along. All of these things I mentioned I'm doing. We will revisit this podcast episode in October and check in like we did this summer, and how are those systems holding up, all of that sort of thing. Start practicing when the stakes are low. If they sleep in a little bit, that's okay. We want to teach the routine, and we want to reinforce the behavior we want to see more of. Remember that independence is something we build over time through reinforcement. If your child needs more help in September, give them more help. If they regress in November, take a step back. We are not looking for a perfect back to school routine. We're trying to create a routine that makes it easier for kids and, honestly, selfishly, us to be successful when the school year starts. So, I feel overwhelmed by some of the stuff I just said. So if this episode is overwhelming, I am apologetic. However, please come join me in the club. Ask any specific questions. If you're like, hey, my 8-year-old struggles with this specifically, let's get into it. Let's talk about what that looks like. I am here to help. I can't believe school's around the corner. I think, like most moms, I have a little bit of mixed emotions about that. But I'm honestly a little bit ready to get back to my work schedule, if I'm being totally honest. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. Remember, if you rate, like, subscribe, review, that really, really means a lot for my podcast. It helps push the content to other parents who might benefit from this. And we're probably going to do a webinar in the club in September to talk about these routines and all of that good stuff. But also remember, in the club, you can ask me any questions. So please get on there and ask me if you have questions about the routine, what it looks like, what to do differently. If one specific area is particularly dire, let's get into it. But thank you guys so much for enjoying me. Please rate this. I think you could do it right now while you're listening. All right. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next week. If this podcast has helped you even a little bit, leaving a review is one of the biggest ways that you can help me. It helps other parents find the show, and honestly, it helps me know what's landing for you. You can do it right now while you're listening. I would really appreciate it. For information on topics like this and many more, come back to this podcast, The Behavior Blueprint Weekly, and you can always check out my content on Instagram and TikTok at The Family Behaviorist. Thanks so much.